What if the next overseas journey you are planning isn't about the destination, but it's about helping you solve a specific life challenge? You're going to hear a heartfelt question from a listener today that may perhaps open up a whole new approach to your next international move. Plus, if you're feeling stuck at all on what location-independent business to start, you're somebody that wants to work remotely, you want to have your own thing, but you're not really sure where to begin, I'm going to give you my litmus test that kind of helps you cut through the confusion and will help point you in the right direction, at least give you some ideas. Also, planes, trains, planes. When listener Brett asked about traversing Southeast Asia, it reminded me of an experience I had in Cambodia and how it changed the way I think about slow travel. I'll share some thoughts there. And also, is slow armchair travel the perfect antidote to our high-speed, high-stress world? It could be. It could be. You'll hear what that's all about. And lastly, a story that proves it's never too late to write your next chapter in life in a brand new setting. All that coming at you in today's special solo episode. Let's dive in. Thanks for listening, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show, my friend. Thank you for being here, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. I want to start off this month's solo episode by saying thank you for being a part of this community. Really, I mean, this whole podcast exists because of you and for you. This is a community-powered show, and as I was going through the emails for this episode, I wanted to answer a few listener questions, and I thought I'd pull some out that I got via email that would help highlight some overarching travel themes and give you some different perspectives, hopefully, on trip planning and some other things, as you heard at the top. And I also pulled out a couple things that I've featured in the newsletter recently that you can get, by the way, for free over at zerototravel.com/newsletter. You can sign up for that over there. And just going through some of these emails, always is a great reminder when people write in. By the way, drop me a line anytime. People write and they, share perhaps a personal story, ask questions, just share their thoughts on the podcast. It's really lovely. And my favorite part of the day is if I get to sit down and actually read an email from somebody in this community listening to this show. It means so much. And it's the fuel that has kept this thing going for this many years and has, continued to inspire me. And sometimes, it's tough year in and year out, week in and week out, to put out new content every week. But what fires me up is you all. And so let's make this a two-way conversation. As just a reminder, please get in touch anytime. You know where to do it. Jason@zerototravel.com is my email. You could drop me a voicemail, my voicemail box, and sign up for the community newsletter. Okay, let's dive in today. I have 3 listener questions I want to share. First, I got an email from a listener. I'm not going to share her name because it's pretty personal. And I just wanted to hit on a concept of reverse engineering your move abroad. And so this listener wrote in and said, thanks for keeping my passion of travel alive. My husband has an illness that has made me rethink the healthcare in our country. She's from the States, which I am sure that you can understand. After doing a bit of research, I found that Portugal is supposed to have better mental health care. Goes on to say, do you have any suggestions of resources or websites to explore the possibility of relocating to Portugal with a focus on finding proper health care? I will do anything to keep him alive. Sorry, this is a heavy topic, but you have hit on the topic of healthcare a few times in your podcast. And I wanted to answer this question for her and for anybody listening who may be in a similar situation. The thing is, we'll get back to this idea of a broader approach of reverse engineering your move abroad based on a specific need or a life challenge rather than a specific destination. First, just to answer the question here. Now, this is sort of a twofold thing. this listener is looking to permanently relocate. But if you are somebody who is seeking healthcare options that are perhaps temporary and more affordable, you can search for medical tourism on zerototravel.com. I did an episode with the founder of a company called Patients Beyond Borders. And medical tourism is generally traveling for treatment. So you go somewhere where you can get high quality treatment that's more affordable, but eventually you do travel back home. So I just wanted to bring that up because perhaps there are people listening that are in that bucket. And if that's something you're curious about, just searching and do your research for medical tourism, whether you listen to that show on Zero to Travel or just start collecting information, that's a whole world. Now, what this listener is talking about is moving abroad. And, every country that you may want to move to is going to have its pros and cons when it comes to healthcare. And I'm not an expert on global healthcare by any stretch. But I do know that a lot of these questions come up. I'm part of an Americans in Norway Facebook group, and these types of questions come up quite a bit. And there are a lot of groups like this. If you can think of every sort of expat hotspot, there is some kind of social media group dedicated to that, whether it's country specific, like American expats specifically, or just expats in general. And a lot of them are great resources to answer your country-specific questions, because a lot of these questions have been asked time and time again in these groups. And so you can go in and use that as sort of your first point of entry for research. Now, if you want to dive deeper, of course, there are organizations that can help you move abroad in various ways, whether it's getting visas. I know my friend Tim runs a company called Citizen Remote where they do just that. There are a lot of resources out there where you can get legal help, tax help, and things like that. But just for getting started and trying to find your way, don't assume one specific country is the answer to all your questions, because I'm sure even if you thought it was and you got there, there are probably going to be some things you come up against that might make it challenging, because there are challenges everywhere in the world. But if you kind of talk to the people, the expats, the immigrants, the people that are living in those countries, the locals, of course, you can get a better sense of if you can get covered for the things that you want to be covered for. So I know that's a pretty broad answer, but I think the groups is a very practical, specific resource that you can check out to start doing some research. Now, going back to this idea of reverse engineering your move abroad, this completely changes the way you research any move abroad or any extended stay abroad. In this case, it's mental health or the healthcare that you might get, but recently on the newsletter, and every year, more and more digital nomad visas come out, and I've talked about this on the show and in the newsletter community. The idea that you might want to choose a place to go based on a visa that you can actually qualify for, because they often have minimum income requirements, certain costs associated with them, certain rules and regulations like any visa. And it may not necessarily be about the country. If you're just open to having an experience abroad, it may just be about finding a visa that can get you to some place. Also, perhaps it's not the destination, but the scene you want to be around. This is another example. I'm using scene in air quotes. The people you want to surround yourself with. Perhaps you want to be among digital nomads. Chiang Mai, Thailand is a hotspot, or Bali. A famous example is Silicon Valley, when people migrated there during the initial big tech boom because they wanted to be around other people that were building startups and companies. So if there's a particular group of people you want to be around, that might dictate the place you want to go. Perhaps you want to learn a particular skill, like learn a language. Then if you want to learn Spanish, you got to go to a Spanish-speaking country, of course. If you want to learn Kung Fu from a Shaolin monk, then you're going to have to travel to China, whether that's on the top of your bucket list or not. And so sometimes that might spark some ideas as well for your next move abroad, or an activity like surfing, and I can go on and on. So, not groundbreaking stuff here, but just a different way of thinking about your travels as you move forward. Is it just the destination? And perhaps it is. You're just I have a dream to live in this one particular place. like somebody else that we're going to feature in this episode shortly that you'll hear about, which is an inspiring story? Or is it something else? Is the passion going to be the skill or the people I'm around and so on? And is that going to be the thing that makes the destination great? Just some food for thought. Okay, we will move on. I got a question and an email from Shelly, who said, I don't know if you ever take listener suggestions, and I'm sure you've covered this, but I'd love to hear how people figured out what location independent business to start. I know there are remote jobs to apply to, or people ask their current employer to go remote, and I've listened to episodes on how to build and grow a business, but I'd love to hear how someone figured out what to do and what planted that seed, if that makes sense. Okay. I'll answer this to the best of my ability because this is, of course, a deep topic. And, people run entire coaching programs on, helping people nail down their business idea that they want, market research, product market fit. There's all these things. But if you just want top line advice, you just like, hey, I'm just confused. I don't even know where to dive in at all. Here's my best advice. That is to choose an industry that excites you. Just like if you zoom out completely wide, you think, I'm excited about the travel industry. Okay, where do I fit within the travel industry? To determine if you're excited about the industry, I think a solid litmus test is to imagine having to go to a conference for insert industry. Does it excite you to be around other people at that conference? Are you stoked to spend money to attend the workshops and the seminars and the things that are in X industry? Or would it bore you to tears? I know I would not want to work in the insurance industry because I'd fall asleep in my seat at every workshop. But thinking about going to a travel industry conference, meeting people from around the world, destinations, all of these things, that excites me. Now, every industry, of course, has countless businesses that serve that industry. So once you nail down an industry you want to be in, the next step is to find your place in it. What product or service will you offer that people are willing to pay for? That's at the heart of every business, right? It's just a product or service that people are willing to pay for, a problem that they need solved and they're willing to pay to solve it. So nail down the industry and then figure out your place in it. Now, I know that's pretty top line advice, but hopefully that gets your wheels turning in the right direction. Okay. Here's one more listener question from Brett, who actually did, it sounds like, reverse engineer his travels. He said he is planning on moving over to England for the summer to play cricket and then on to the next country to play cricket for the next summer and so on. He says, before that, I'm working on a trip through Southeast Asia from Singapore to Hanoi and then flying to Hong Kong and then stopping in England. I've traveled to different parts of that area as a kid with my family. This will be my first time on my own. I'm going through the stage of working out how I will travel from place to place. Would love to hear how you traveled through Asia yourself and to help figure out my best way to move around the longer distances of travel would be. I hope that makes sense. If not, then my bad, and I'll try again. Okay. Thanks for the question, Brett. Here's the thing. Traveling around Southeast Asia, for example, I find is pretty easy. A bus, air, train. What really defines your choices is how much time you have. In general, I try to avoid flights when I have time to slow travel. I would rather spend more time in a place and soak it up than try to run around and see everything. But that's just me. If I don't have a lot of time, of course, flights get you around faster, but then you're spending more money. In general, you could search on Wikipedia, for example, and find a list of budget airlines in various countries. That's a good place to start if you're looking for those. And of course, you can always check out Google Flights. It's a great place to do some initial research. I always try to book directly with the airline, but my first stop is generally Google Flights. They have so many cool filters and things you can do to try to find affordable flights. Then I will book directly with the airline. But when it comes to the budget airlines, those are not all included in the Google Flights search. So if you go to that Wikipedia page, which I can Google up and link to for you in the show notes, you can find different budget airlines in these countries, or you could just do the research on your own. Those are the airlines you're probably going to want to use in country to fly around. Of course, any airlines that are based in Asia, you can use to get around to different places. Asia is an entire continent. So these are broad generalizations. But the point I wanted to make, the main point, is structure it in a way based on your travel style. Do you need to run around and see a lot of things? And what does that actually look like? Because the idea of hopping around and seeing so many things might sound awesome on the surface until you start to dig in and realize how many days you're going to have to spend at the airport flying around. Are you flexible and open to perhaps adding in some last minute travel? This was something that my wife and I did when I had a solid month in Vietnam. She had 3 weeks. We were going to just stay in Vietnam the whole time, which we did, but then we got tantalizingly close to Cambodia and Angkor Wat, and we decided, this is something we really want to see. So we booked, can't even remember what airline, but we booked one of the budget airlines and ended up flying there and spending a week there and getting to have time in Cambodia, and we loved it, and it's a place we want to go back and spend more time. But we never planned to go there originally, and that's happened to me quite a lot on the road, where I don't have any flights necessarily. It's all about slow travel, buses, trains, cars, vans, group van transports, and so on. But then if I get inspired or something comes up and I want to do it, I'll just book a flight on a whim. And depending on how much time you have, you could structure it that way. So there's no right answer here. The right answer is what fits with your budget and your travel style and how much flexibility you want to have. And I think that's sort of the 3-point plan to consider as you're debating how to travel around a particular region. And this can apply to Asia or anywhere. So just some food for thought there. Okay. Last couple things, some recent features in the newsletter that I found fun. I like to just curate some things and write about them. And I think this one caught my eye because I was reading the local paper here in Norway, and there was a little blurb at the top about a new Swedish television show. Well, let me ask you this question. Would you watch a 527-hour-long TV show featuring moose crossing a river? This is what they do. It's a Scandinavian slow TV. Of course, nobody sits there and watches hundreds of hours of it, but they will have a camera trained on a particular section of the river that moose cross at this time of year. And it's just over 500 hours of just streaming from this particular area of the woods and this particular river. And this is Scandinavian slow TV, which is a movement that seems to be picking up steam. And it's to me, a wonderful counterpoint to sort of the kind of frantic pace of 24/7 news cycle and media and the way things are cut together and television and 30-second videos on social media and all this stuff. With slow TV, it's just hours upon hours of just one thing. And from my research, the first one happened in Norway, I believe. It kind of blew up and got pretty popular. It was a 7+ hour show, which was simply the train ride from Oslo to Bergen, which is a wonderful, beautiful, one of the world's best train rides. And if you come to Norway, I definitely encourage you to do that. And I share that on my newsletter. There's a YouTube video of that. You can search it. So if you do watch all of those 7+ hours on that train ride, you'll get a little taste of that slow TV zen. And now I've come to kind of love this genre of TV. In the summer, you'll see here in Norway, for example, they will have a ferry that's just running through the fjord, and that will just be it. Just hours of just this ferry, people on this boat, fjords, beautiful views, scenery. Nothing really happens. There's no plot. There are no characters. Nobody's sleeping with somebody else. There's no judge at the end that comes out and gives you a rose if you're going home, or I don't even know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying. It's just hours and hours and hours of slow TV. And it's kind of nice. It might just be the perfect antidote to the 24/7 news cycle and frantic, TV and 30-second videos and social media and all this stuff. And I don't know, you might be interested. I just wanted to bring it up because, like me, you probably have watched a lot of travel television shows with hosts, and we're used to that format. And this is just a totally different style of travel TV. I call it slow, relaxing armchair travel TV. Scandinavian slow TV. Look it up, check it out, enjoy it. There's your zen. Okay, lastly, I want to shout out Janice in France, who has a YouTube station. I got to get her on the show, actually, because I found this story that I read about her on CNN inspiring and a great reminder that we can all live our life of travel at any age. So if you're still in the dreaming phase, this will inspire you to keep those dreams alive, because Janice sold everything and moved to France at 70. And she even started this YouTube station, Janice in France. The tagline is simply writing the story of my life from France. And that's how I'm going to close this show out. If you're tired of the location, the setting, where you're writing the story of your life, then why not shake things up and change the location, change the setting? You can start writing your next new chapter today. Hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for listening. Please get in touch if you have questions, if you have tips, if you have travel philosophies you want to share, if you have interesting articles, just get in touch. I'm going to make more of these solo shows, and I want to feature more of you. Again, going back to where we started, which is the heart of everything that happens here. This is a community-powered show. Please get in touch. Don't forget, you can also sign up for that newsletter, zerototravel.com/newsletter. It's free. Goes out once a week. You got nothing to lose to sign up over there. Thank you so much for listening, for being here. I'll leave you with a quote. Let me reach into the quote drawer here. This one is from Atisha, who said, "The greatest effort is not concerned with results." Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by ZeroToTravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.